Hiya, how are you? I'm telling you, I am so fucking cold. Okay, when my mum passed a couple of years ago, in 2022, Bruce reformed the house she lived in. So it's like we live in southern Spain, basically. We have like a long, old rabbit farm. The rabbits died of myxomatosis. And then back in the day, my parents rebuilt it, and we have like two houses in either end, and then a big garage in the middle where we just have bikes, an old car, and a lot of shite, to be honest. So when my mum passed, Bruce reformed her house and we moved in there because it's got more sun, it's got a really nice terrace, and we actually have some sort of view to the sea. And then we rented our old house out, which is where my girls grew up, and we've been there forever. Really nice people, like they're sort of friends of friends. Now, we here where we live in Spain, it's more very normal to heat your water up with gas. So we have like gas bottles and then a gas heater, a boiler. And their boiler broke, and then Bruce had an old one lying around the garage, which he then put installed instead. And then that one broke. It was leaking and doing all sorts. So obviously they're renting the house and they're paying us money, so we're responsible for them having access to warm water. So Bruce said, "Well, the best boiler I've ever had was one we bought on Amazon, which is for a house he used to rent out, and." That is the brand we need to buy, and that is the best one, and we can't have any other. Now you have to understand the Bruce is a do-it-yourself man, and that means that everything is done by him. So I have to kind of respect his choices in these things, right? If he says the car needs this and this piece, I'm not going to argue with him because I know nothing about it, and he's the one that's going to install it. If he says this is the boiler he wants to install, that's the boiler installing. Okay, so I go on Amazon, and then it happens to not arrive until like up till 10 days later. Obviously, these people, because they're paying us, we can't leave them without hot water. So Bruce then took our boiler and put into their house, and now I'm praying that Amazon will turn up quickly because I've been showering and washing my hair with cold water since. Why am I telling you this? Because today I did my henna. You put your henna in and I just walk around. I cannot be bothered going to the hairdressers. I just feel like it's such a waste of time for me. I cannot sit still. And it's so expensive. And whatever dyes they have are really toxic for me. Like I get super itchy and dermatitis. So henna at home is what I do. I have never tried to wash my henna out with cold water before. And I'm telling you, that was a challenge. It's like a cow shat on your head, and then you're trying to wash it out without, any shampoo or anything. I'm not washing it out with shampoo. And if you're a girl, you're going to understand where I'm coming from, because I'm having Muay Thai later, where I tie up my hair really tight so it doesn't get in the way. So I always want to wash it after Muay Thai because it's super sweaty and it looks horrible. So I didn't want to wash it twice. So I just washed it with cold water. But oh my God, like it was like brain freeze, but on my scalp. So if you're watching me on YouTube, I look like Bruce has mopped the house with my head. That's what it looks like right now. I'm hoping once I wash it after my tie it looks better. But so I'm obviously very cold because as warm as it is in Spain, like washing your hair with really cold water is just not fun. Anyway, that was a really long rant. And what I want to say with this and what I wanted to tell you, apart from, it's nice, isn't it, that you know a bit of what I run around and do and why I am who I am. But also, like, I'm so happy I've got coaching because I feel like in the past, if this had happened, I would have a very long manual about how men should make sure their wives didn't have to wash their hair with cold water. But I have learned long ago to accept Bruce and love him as he is, with all his little quirks. And there's downsides and there's upsides. There's a lot of upsides, so I take the downsides in their stride, which is then removing my henna with cold hair. Okay, so to the subject of this week, now you know why I'm sitting here shivering and looking like I've been mopping a house with my head. I have coached a few vets now on, actually quite a few, on either they've taken a break and maybe worked, completely away from vet med or in a pharmaceutical company, a bit like what I did, right? I had a break for a year and did other stuff. Or maybe they have been away, and so been away now they're going back to clinical practice or are thinking about going back and want to know if it's the right decision for them. Or maybe they don't like where they're working or they just want to move to another practice. But in both instances, they're very worried that they're not going to know how to manage their time and their boundaries when they get to the new place. And this is especially if you've been away from vet med and if you burned out from vet med, and then you have a break and now you feel better again and you feel like, oh, it'd be nice to go back. I miss it. It's fun. It's challenging. I miss the patients. I miss the dogs. I miss the, doing workups and everything that really excites us and what we thought were exciting when we started in vet school, right? Maybe you may be at that point, so you miss it. But in the day, you obviously didn't manage your boundaries, you didn't manage your time, you couldn't say no to anybody, and you were completely frazzled, exhausted, and just burned out and hating vet med at the end of it. I understand where you're coming from if that's the case, and some of the vets I've coached as well, because I've been there, right? And you have that fear, what's going to happen. I didn't have that fear after a year of coaching because then I actually knew how to manage my mind. And my whole point is that when I left vet med, I didn't want to go back because I was like, vet med is not for me. It's terrible. It's awful. And I am obviously not built for it. And then once my mind got coached on and I realized how much was in my control, that's when I then thought, actually, now I miss vet med and I'm confident I could go back and it'll be fine. So I've coached several people on it and I've taken some notes from from the sessions we've had. And I was like, I feel I'm kind of repeating myself, so I'm giving the same advice as well. So although all of you are very special, you're very unique, and I love you all, and you're so individual, but our brains are very similar in the way we think. So I think if I transmit to you what we've talked about in these sessions, you're going to get a lot out of it. And I have actually decided to create my first ebook, like a little manual for when you are going back to work in clinical practice or you're moving to a new clinic and you're worried that you're going to take your old bad habits with you and burn out again. So the ebook is called How to Start Again in Veterinary Practice and Live to Tell the Tale. So it's not just for if you are starting again and been away from vet med, but it's also if you're moving on to a new practice and you're worried about, you not being able to cope or being or taking all your bad habits with you, not being able to set boundaries on that. So what I explain in the ebook, and I really encourage you to go on and buy it. I'll put the link in the show notes just so you have something to work with. It's got worksheets as well. It's got a lot of like questions you can answer and fill out. But what I want to address also today, just to give you an overview, is that there are two things mainly that scare us and overwhelms us when this happens, when we have to go back to a clinic or when we have to go to a new place. The first is the newness of it, right? Because to our brains, anything new is scary. You know the saying, it's better the devil, And if you watch Lucifer, then it's definitely always better the devil, But in general, it's like, I'm here, I'm safe. Your brain is looking around, you got some sort of tribe, you have food in your belly, you have a roof over your head, you're not dying, nobody's attacking you with a spear. So just stay where you are, dude. Like, why move away? Because moving means now you have to find a new tribe and you have to integrate. You realize I'm talking from your primitive brain, right? I know that your frontal lobe and your conscious mind know this is not it. But the thing is that our brain sends us these 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and our nervous system, all that is still coming from our primitive brain. That is not your rational, logical, smart brain thinking. This is the one whose sole mission is to keep you alive and make you survive, right? So you have to integrate with a new tribe and you risk getting rejected from this tribe, which is going to make your brain send you a ton of thoughts around the whole, oh, is she going to fit in? Is she going to be lazy? Is she going to know enough? Which is, people never think, right? But we think, they think, and we're projecting our own fear onto them. What if they judge me? What if like I start and then they don't like me? They decide I don't know enough. They kick me out again. I'm going to feel awful. So there's the whole like trying to fit in with a new tribe. There's the whole, suddenly I know nothing. I'm sitting here thinking I'm going back to vet med and I realize I never knew anything and I'll never know anything ever again and I have no experience. Like I'm starting from scratch, which is a big fat lie because that's not true. You have accumulated so much experience, right? And I think I mentioned in one of my, I can't remember now because now I've been running courses and workshops. I can't remember what I said where, but I'll say it again just in case. It is like, a good exercise for this fear is to sit down and write down everything you've actually learned that you didn't know before, such as like just refocus your brain and say, well, I know how to place a catheter. I know what vaccines to use. I have spayed a bitch before, or at least a cat, just like remind your brain that you're not starting from scratch because that is not the truth, right? And your brain realizes that any change, anything new is producing is you have a risk of discomfort because you have to find out where to put your stuff. You don't know where the needles are. You don't know who to ask for anything. You might not know how their software works. And all that is just like a lot of discomfort that's coming in all sort of unpredictable ways. And it's like our brain just wants us to not spend any energy. And it's going to take a lot on energy because you can't rely on autopilot, right? So it makes sense that if you are deciding or thinking about going back to clinical practice or you want to move on to a new practice, that your brain is going to fight you because it does not want you to move because, hello, you're alive now. We don't need anything else in this life. And then the second issue that we have to fight with our brains when we have to go to a new place or start again in clinical practice is that we are going to think and project all our beliefs on the new place from the past. Your brain is going to use all the experience you've had up to now, all your patterns, how you used to work, how you used to think, how you used to be, any interaction with managers, co-workers, peers, clients. You're going to think of that and your brain is like, and this is going to happen again. And it's like you get stuck in this, I don't know how to do it otherwise. Like, I really hope they're all super nice so I won't have to ever set boundaries because I don't know how to do that. And I want you to know that you have so much more power than you realize. Like you can make changes, and for sure, it is possible for you to change everything. And it doesn't have to be that hard because your past does not define you. However, you lived your life in the past, whatever happened to you in the past has absolutely 0% to do with what's going to happen with your future. And simply for listening to this podcast, or if you buy the ebook as well, like simply that has already set you on a different path. Like if let's say you did nothing, let's say you left practice, or you're gonna move to a new one, and you just done no work on yourself at all. You're not listened to any podcast, not read anything about how you can manage your mind or set boundaries and all that shit. And you just continue on the same course, right? And you end up in the same place because you don't change anything, but not because your past is defining you. It's just like you were on a path and you're like, you just followed that straight line, right? Simply listening to this is already going to change that direction because you're going to, this will make you think maybe 1 to 2%, say to the left differently. This will produce a little change in you. And that 1%, if you imagine a ship that's going in a straight line and now we change its direction 1 or 2 degrees, you know that that's going to end up over time in a completely different place. So already you have broken the pattern by listening to this, by making the decision to listen to this podcast and actually make changes in your life. So you have already made the change. So already now, whatever happened to you back then is not going to happen again. Different stuff will happen. So what I break down in the ebook is like, first of all, to look at your priorities. Like, what are your priorities in life, at work? What are you doing right now? Decide how much you want to work. You know, all these things that you might have just rolled with, like life just was just happening to you. You were not setting any priorities. It was just like things would come up and you just kind of go along, chill, you know, not really deciding anything. And the busier we are, the more we tend to do this because who the fuck has time to stop and think about things and you know take time to decide what you want with your life and what priorities do you have and what do you actually want to do. But paradoxically, it takes a bit of time to do this work on yourself and set these priorities. But if you don't do them, it's going to take so much more time because you're going to be faffing around doing a lot of unnecessary stuff that you don't need to do. And then that's what's going to take up time and mental space. And you're not going to have time to, you know, to rest after work because your brain is just spinning and all that, right? So like setting priorities and then deciding like how much do you want to work, how much do you want to think about work, and really like challenge your brain on these assumptions it has around stuff. Um, So I talk about in the ebook, I talk about, both if you have like consoles, how to prioritize your life between consoles, like how do you speak to the receptionist, the owners to kind of like say these are my priorities. And if you have emergencies, because I was coaching a vet the other day on this, and she was a bit like, I just feel like a bit overwhelmed when I have a lot of cases going in, and then I don't know how to prioritize. So I teach about that as well, like how to take a piece of paper, write it all down. This is all stuff I've addressed in other podcasts, loosed around, but I've just put it all into one document for you. Um, and then I have a huge thing about how to get out on time. And how to out on time is literally just boundaries. So if you go back and listen to all my podcasts about boundaries for the owners, for the managers, for your colleagues, for yourself and your private time, one by one, you'll probably get to the same. But here I put it down into one document. So like one by one. So first, like boundaries you need to set for the receptionist to like block out appointments that you don't want them to fill up so you can have more time, how you can set boundaries so they don't interrupt you, all the mind chatter that might come up when you try to set boundaries, especially with new people. Are they gonna think I'm not enough? Are they gonna think I'm lazy? Are they gonna think all the other vets do more than I do? And then you how to set boundaries for the clients as well, because you want to be nice and you want to be helpful, but you also need to lead. So we talk about that, allowing yourself to pause and breathe and like find your ground again when you feel a bit overwhelmed, and not get dragged into doing a lot of tests and diagnostics and imaging and whatnot when they actually just came in for a booster, but like stand your ground and being able to say, actually, we're going to give you another appointment for this, because, and you can say it a nice way, right? I want to give you another appointment for this because I really want to take my time exploring this very amazing, difficult, unique case that your dog is. You can set boundaries and be nice about it, right? Instead of like rushing around and forcing stuff into like a 15-minute consult that is literally not realistic. And then I talk about like boundaries for yourself, like evaluate how you do things. And here it is where you really have to be willing to look at how you're thinking, how you're planning your day, how are you doing things, how do you write your notes? If you've listened to a podcast, you know that I once coached a vet that ended up writing notes until 9 o'clock every night because they had to be so perfect, and she still had like 17 history to still type out at the weekend, right? So this is the boundary we have to set for ourselves. And I also come into, so for example, if like it's literally the software that doesn't work in a way that you can type your notes and console, like what can you change? Like take the time now. Like in Spanish, we have this saying like it's more worth getting red once than 100 times yellow, which is like embrace the discomfort of making the changes now instead of like just always be like slightly uncomfortable 100 times throughout the day. And I teach you as well my three evaluation method, where I'm not going to talk about it because we've got another episode on that, but how to apply it. And then also how to get out on time, like in regards to your manager or clinic director, whoever you have that asks you to do stuff, like if they ask you to stay longer, do another shift and do an extra consult, how to like pause, um, again, ground yourself, not like rush into saying yes to things. So you end up at the end of the day feeling resentful towards people and then coming home late again, and now your partner's annoyed at you. And why is it more important that your clinical manager doesn't get annoyed with you or upset with you than your partner, your family, for example, right? And that's where the priorities come in. Then I teach you like how to feel, because if you have like a 10 out of 10 anxiety of thinking about going into this new place or coming back to vet med in general, to clinical practice, you have to be able to feel your emotions, feel them and process them. And through the ebook, I actually gift you I got a bonus video from the 12-week course that we're just finishing now, Happy in VetMed, which is literally how to process your feelings. So it's like a 15-minute video where you sit and you process your feelings. And I have a podcast on that, so you can also just watch that if you want. And how to process it so you have some control over your nervous system and over your brain and what's happening throughout the day, right? Like it's the work you want to practice so you can become emotionally resilient and not be like at this boat floating aimlessly around, pushed to and fro by emotions you don't even know you have, right? So being conscious about it. And then I have a little section at the end of the manual with tips for morning rituals, what I do, because if you get up in the morning and you're already stressed and already anxious and you don't take time to take care of that, this is like the main thing I have done now for over 5 years to get to a point where I can go through my day without being already triggered and exhausted from the get-go, right? So these are stuff that I do on some or all or on and off mornings, depending on how I feel or when I wake up or how much time I got. So I go through with you like what you first to do when you get up. Meditation, I tell you what I do, and I also give you some links to stuff I use, how to move, like journaling. And like again to practice feelings. I really go in depth with this just to help you getting out, like a lot of tools to get you um out of anxiety and out of fear when you have to go, and you can feel much more grounded and calm, right? And these are all tools, like I said in the manual, these are tools that it's good to have in your tool belt, and you don't have to use them all the time or not use them at all if you don't feel like they're for you. It's just options, so you at least know they exist and where you can find them. And it's a bit like having a hammer in your tool belt. It doesn't mean you have to run around banging everything with a hammer, but it's good to have in case you need it, right? So, um, like in conclusion, change will always be scary. And doing new things or going to new places will always scare us. And if you have already got anxiety and fear from your past and you want to drag that with you, I strongly feel it's important that you get the tools and you work on yourself so you can manage it now. Because no matter how nice they are in the new place, you're going to be working with humans, and humans are going to come in with bad days. Owners are going to come in with some sort of fucked up background and no money, and you want to be able to at least land at work grounded, have some sort of tools in your belt that you can, say if you drive up and as you're driving toward work, you're getting more and more anxious, then at least you have some tools so you can like take 5 minutes before you go in to ground yourself, calm yourself, and go like, oh no, I'm okay. It's fine. And I'm sorry that you have to do this work. I'm sorry that we don't just automatically can just cope with that, med. I'm sorry it's such a challenging profession, but also it is very challenging, but it's also very, very rewarding when we don't let it get to us this way. And we have chosen it because it's something we wanted to do, right? Because it excites us and we love the workups and we love like the success stories and we love helping the animals. And some of us also at one point get to love helping the owners feel better. And when you do such important work, it will always be uncomfortable. There'll always come stuff up. There'll always be ways that your nervous system is going to be triggered. I suddenly like just thought, did I actually hit the record button on this? Because I feel I speak so from heart. I don't know if I'll remember saying it again. Let me just check. I think I did. We are recording. Thank fucking God for that. Have you ever done that? You had to like do something and you were like, it came from the heart and you were so like, this is like exactly what I wanted to say. And like sometimes we talk and I want to say something and I don't know how to say it and it doesn't come out the way I wanted to say it. And this time it did. Anyway, I'll leave that in there so you can see that I'm also happy feeling forward. Anyway, I hope this episode was helpful. If you know anybody who are in the process of thinking about going back to veterinary practice or have already decided, or they're moving to a new practice, or they're even just moving to a new profession and you know that they are struggling with these anxieties and fears like most of us are, unless you're like a robot, it's really difficult not to get freaked out by new stuff and changes happening in our lives. We don't like change. Then like absolutely I would love for you to share this episode with them and recommend the ebook that I'm going to put up, this manual I've made. I'll put the link in the show notes. And if you don't want it, then you can also just like take each of the episodes from my podcast. You can go through it and it will say like which episode will be related to. Like you can see like the whole boundaries things, like fear of change and all that separately. This is just a way to do it like neatly in one package for this specific situation right now. Please review and like the podcast, follow if you haven't already, subscribe. It really helps the platform. I think that's what all podcasters say. So I say just in case it helps because I really want as many people as possible to hear it. So if it's something they resonate with, they can help them. And I know a lot of us are saying, yeah, like you're probably hearing this from a lot of ways. And I hear people talk about these things. But for me, a message has to arrive in the right way at the right time. Like I can listen to something or read something and be like, yeah, I get that. And then like 2 days later, it's gone. And other times I just hear it at the right time and I have already thought a bit about it maybe, or the way the person says it just lands right now. And that's why I keep on with my podcast as well, because I'm hoping that as many people as possible that for some reason need this right now and need the way I say it will get it. So anything you can do to share and to spread the message and like subscribe, review, like, and also obviously, like I said before, I have a form where you can fill out any questions you have, any feedback, or any like subject you would like me to talk about. That's also helpful because if you think there's something you want, then other people probably want it as well. So that was it for today. And I love you all. And if you're struggling, know you're not alone. I've been there. I'm coaching a lot of people who are in it right now and getting better with time. So, worry on and be proud of being a vet. And if you decided to leave vet med, that's fine as well. You should be proud of just existing. You're doing amazing. Bye.